This is the first episode of a new channel I'm calling David Copes. Today we're going to be going over what this channel is, who I am, who this channel's for, and what you can expect in upcoming episodes. So I hope you'll stick around. So welcome. I am David. This is my new channel I'm calling David Copes. This channel is to chronicle my journey through my mental illness, to both keep myself accountable, to be an example and a non-example, to hopefully break the stigma of mental illness, and hopefully to be of help to people that are going through some of the same things that I'm going through or have gone through. So a little bit about myself. I am 46 years old, just had a birthday a few days ago, last week. I'm married. I have been diagnosed with several things. Some of them are overlapping, some of them are contradictory to each other. I agree with some of them and I don't necessarily agree with others. My main diagnosis is Schizoaffective Disorder, bipolar type, which means that I have both a personality disorder and a mood disorder. The schizoaffective part means that I have hallucinations. In my particular case, I often will feel other people's auras and feel their feelings as my own. I also have auditory hallucinations, which means that I hear voices. I hear, often most of the time, it sounds like a radio's on or people are in the next room talking, or sometimes I'll think the TV's on and it's not. Those are my main complaints, I guess. On the bipolar side, I believe I mostly am in the realm of the depression side. I'm a very calm person and low key. My mania seems to present itself in anger usually. I don't really have these silly or manic episodes the way most people might imagine. I don't sit and just start laughing, and I don't feel elation, I guess, that I've observed with other people that with the same diagnosis. I get really, really upset and I'm uncomfortable with that. My original diagnosis was major depression with psychotic features. I guess before we completely understood how my bipolar was working. Also, I think an important element in the bipolar part is my brain is constantly going 1,000 miles a minute. Also with the schizoaffective part, I do have a lot of paranormal ideations that I have to tamp down, and that also plays along with the overthinking that I do. I was diagnosed at one time with borderline personality, which the main symptom, I guess, of borderline personalities, from what I've gathered, is pretty much a manipulative person. I admit that at times, especially in the past, especially when I was newly diagnosed, I was and could be very manipulative. I think that had more to do with immaturity and not to do with a personality disorder per se. I think I've outgrown that. Not too sure. I also think that's probably what a person with borderline personality would say. But I can't control that. Diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. I deal with social anxiety. I do not like being around people. I will say that this year of isolation, due to the pandemic, has been easily the best year of my life in a lot of ways. I've been able to kind of emotionally relax. Being an introvert, I actually prefer to be at home. This is my Lego room. I do my sewing here. I have my music here. Obviously, all of my Lego sets. I do my filming here as well for this and my other channels. I do my homework here. I actually love being in this room, and if I didn't have to leave to sleep, eat, and do my business, I could stay in here forever. That's not a problem. Another thing that I guess I outgrew as well is self-mutilation. People will sometimes call us cutters. I used to cut my arms with razor blades. That, of course, is extremely dangerous, but it is something that I did in the past. Now, as far as who this channel is for, I'm hoping that people that love somebody with mental illness maybe will stumble upon this and maybe understand their loved one a little bit better. I'm hoping that if you are suffering from mental illness yourself, that you will maybe relate and not feel so alone, and maybe find some things that you might find helpful. With my journey, like I said, I'm willing to both be an example and a non-example. Take what you need. And another demographic that I would be grateful to reach out to is anyone that's had questions about mental illness but hasn't really had the opportunity to ask somebody, or maybe they don't have anybody to ask. I'm hoping that this will be a forum that we can talk about things. I'm pretty open about my mental illness, what those symptoms are, how they affect me, and I'm willing to answer whatever questions you have. And I think it could be a good exercise to maybe find some questions in the comment section and do an episode answering those types of questions if there's a need for that. Now, as far as what to expect from this channel, I'm really going to be covering things that I've learned from my psychiatrists, from my nurses, from my counselors, things that I've learned independently, watching TED Talks or YouTube channels, or things that I've just stumbled upon. Going to be talking about how things work in our minds, at least in my mind, things that you might find helpful that I have found helpful. And then I know with people that are dealing with mental illness, being told what to do, especially when it's something simple, can often be quite heavy on us, right? And what I mean by that is, for example, when somebody is smoking and somebody comes up to them and says, smoking causes cancer, you should stop. You're never going to see somebody put their cigarette out, thank them for that information, and then never smoke again, right? People that are smoking are usually smoking for a variety of reasons, right? And so obviously if it's a young person, it may be to act cool or to be more adult, or maybe it's a rebellious thing. If you're a little bit older, maybe you need the nicotine, maybe you have an oral fixation. There's multiple reasons, but the cancer part of it really doesn't come into play. Nobody starts smoking so that they can get cancer, right? And so it's the same way with somebody who's dealing with a weight issue. If you call them fat, and the reason they're eating is because eating makes them feel better, and then you called them a fat person, or you made some kind of derogatory comment and made them feel worse, then they're going to eat more to try to make themselves feel better. So oftentimes, repeating the simple tasks that we have to do is going to weigh heavy on a person that already knows what they need to do. And I do believe that generally we do know. So my goal is to be less judgmental and to be more understanding, and to acknowledge that everything is simple, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. And so my goal is to get these things that aren't so easy and to break them down into something that is easier. And so my education background is in automotive repair. And so I know that for your car to run, for your engine to run, you need three things. You need fuel in the tank, you need a spark from your battery, and you need air for the combustion, at least in a combustion engine, to explode, right? And so that's very simple. But nobody would say that fixing a car is simple unless you break it down into even further steps, right? So let's say you don't have the spark. You know, when a mechanic turns the key and they listen, the car doesn't start. They're listening for things to kind of give them an idea of where they're going, right? And so if you turn the key and absolutely nothing happens, then you know that it's a spark issue, right? There's no spark. Maybe your dash lights don't come on. Then you go back and you have three more things to check, right? You have your battery, you have your fuses, and then you have your electrical lines that are going through the car, right? And every time you go through one of those things, and you go, let's say you find the battery. Well, the battery has three parts too, right? You need to make sure that it's charged. You need to make sure that you have the positive and negative terminals have conductivity. The electricity can go through the wires. And you need to make sure there's no corrosion, right? And so you keep going down into these three things, right? And so I often will use, I'll break everything down into threes. And so to kind of explain that in relation to this channel, one of the concepts that I always think about when I'm talking to somebody else that has mental illness is to find your equal sign, right? And what I mean by that is that everything in life has an equal sign. And so when you're talking about a mathematical problem, 1 + 2 = 3, right? We know that if you change any of those numbers, then the other numbers have to change too, right? So if you change the 3 to a 5, then the 1 + 2 doesn't equal 5. Something on the other side has to change, right? And so you can change either the 1, you can change the 2, you can change them both, but something has to change to make that work. And so it's the same way, right? If your thoughts are doing 1 and your emotions are doing 2, and then your actions are doing 3, right? And so you need to find your equal sign. And how are you going to be able to manipulate that scenario, what your thoughts are, what your emotions are, what your actions are, and able to get what you want, right? And so it's an easy example, back to a weight issue, right? If you eat too much and exercise too little, you're going to have a weight issue, right? And so you can change those things to get different results. And so that's kind of how I deal with my mental illness, you know. And I know that if I get enough sleep and I eat the right foods and I stay active, then everything's going to be kind of in an equal, right? In a balance, right? And so if I know that if I stay in bed, even if I eat well, that I'm probably not going to be active. And so one of the things that I do to deal with my depression is to make sure that I shower every single day. When I have been at my worst as far as depression goes, my personal hygiene was lacking. And so in order to make sure that doesn't happen, regardless of my mood, regardless of what's going on in my life, I make sure that I'm bathed every single day. And I try to do some other things, brushing my teeth, making sure that I'm getting a good night's sleep, etc., right? And so all of these things are in my equation where my equal sign is, and that I'm able to keep it balanced, right? And so that's just an example. I'm going to go over these things in detail. Actually, my very first episode is to talk about the equal sign and how I use it in other parts of my life. And so that's really all I have for this episode. I hope you stick around, follow me on my journey, and I hope to get to know some of you and hope to be of help. So thanks for watching.